Okay, Portland, I get it. You like to rough it in the snow. You don't need many plows or salt, and it's fine. But is it really? I mean, do we have to live this way? Also, seniors, teachers, and prisoners are all starting to get vaccinated here in Oregon, while people in adult foster homes feel left behind.
They're supposed to be in the first group. They're the people that are at the most risk.
And one of our local lawmakers almost got a starring role in the impeachment trial.
Congresswoman Jamie Herrera Butler of Washington State.
Well, at least until they decided not to call any witnesses. Here's the story.
Hope you're doing okay. Hope everybody's doing all right out there. A lot of people probably can't even watch us because you have no power. But if you're just getting power back on a day or two from now, welcome back. Hi. I want to start with just 3 quick stories tonight. The first is mine. I did get stuck leaving here on Friday. A lot of you were curious how I was going to get home. It didn't go great. I did get stuck. We lost power at the house yesterday. The food in the fridge spoiled. We had to go to a hotel. I shared a bed with my 4-year-old son, who I think was dreaming about snow angels all night. It wasn't the best. The next story is about another house on another street in my neighborhood. Ice ripped a tree limb down and tore a huge hole in the roof. I assume the power went out for them too. Cell phones weren't working in the area, and I'm betting you they'd swap stories with me in a heartbeat. Now, the last story came from the nanny of our close friends. They both are working parents, and they have a nanny who helps them out. And she told them a story today about when the power went off on her street and how it became a life and death situation. Her neighbor has cancer. And when the fridge died, her medicine spoiled, and she needed help immediately. But she wouldn't call an ambulance because she couldn't afford it, which is a story for another day. But that meant that she had to drive to the hospital on roads that were nearly impassable. So all of the neighbors came out, and they pushed her car together through these huge piles of snow until they got it onto a plowed street. I wasn't there. This is just what I was being told. Now, all of those stories matter. I don't discount anything that anybody is going through, but there are varying degrees of inconvenience or heartache. So check in with your neighbors, make sure they're warm, make sure they're okay, ask them if they're hungry, make sure they have all the medicine that they need. I'm Dan Haggerty. Thanks for being with us tonight. This is the story. I would like to hear yours. How are you doing? How have you weathered this storm? What have you done to get by? Email us at thestory@kgw.com. Find me on Facebook or Instagram, or use Twitter in the hashtag HeyDan. Now, I know lots of you had something to say on Friday when I complained pretty heartily about the roads and the highways that were packed with unplowed snow. Zach tweeted me and said, "Welcome to Oregon." No, we don't do anything about the roads when it snows. It's a time-honored tradition, and we're proud of it, I guess. Then Matt emailed me as well and said, "Thank you, thank you, thank you." Did I say thank you for Friday's intro riff on the utter failure and mismanagement of freeway snow management by ODOT? Peter and Kathy Keys did not agree with me or Matt and said, "I hope with a little more perspective and weather, your overreaction to your difficulty traveling in our recent and continuing conditions has moderated. This was a real selfish and newbie response." And Andrew Preble made the economic argument I've heard a lot. The reason it takes us so long to remove snow is because we get it rarely, and therefore it is not justified to have a big fleet. Big fleets cost money to buy, maintain, and have drivers ready to go. And lots of people sent me this article that I think is worth your time. It's a piece from the Willamette Week titled, "Hey, Midwestern Transplants, you can't drive in Portland snow either. Four-wheel drive means nothing on ice, Tim." It's Dan, and I'm from the East, but I still feel like you're talking to me. It was written by a Portland attorney and mom of 2 who dislikes the snow but defends how Portland handles it. She makes arguments about not using salt, having a small fleet, and gets a little angry with people who use chains on their car but decide to drive on bare roads. It's a fun read. It's certainly going to spur an argument or two in your household, but before you go shouting about it with someone, why don't we go and talk about the facts?
And with that, let's bring in Kyle Aboshi, who's out on the roads and talking to ODOT today. I know a lot of crews right now are dealing with the ice and the down power lines, but let's talk about what happened a little bit before that when the snow started falling on Thursday and into Friday. And I think we should just begin with what I'm looking at in your shot right now, the road that you are standing on. in Portland doesn't appear to have seen a snowplow come down it or any salt. Am I right in what I'm seeing there?
Right, and that here on a side street, you can see there are some bare pavement here, some ruts along the road, a lot of slush as well, but clearly has not been paved. In contrast to that, you look down here on Jefferson, and you can see that road has been paved. There's also some gravel down on it as well. I asked PBOT about this earlier today, which is in charge of the roads in the city of Portland. They say essentially their primary focus are the main thoroughfares, also emergency routes, those used by fire, police to get around town. The side streets they're less concerned about, including neighborhoods, for a couple of reasons. One, there's just too many to plow, and secondarily, they say they're too narrow to get the plows through. So they're not really focused here. They're going to let those thaw out as they normally would. And in this case, for the time being, it seems to be working. Early on in the storm, certainly a different story, though.
Now, Jefferson on Friday night, or at least the road parallel to that, is where I got stuck leaving the newsroom, and it was about 24 hours after the initial snowfall, and it didn't appear that anything had been plowed then as well. Is that because of the size of the fleet, about how many vehicles we have, that they're unable to get to all those roads in a 12 or 24-hour period? What is kind of the excuse there as to why it takes so long to hit some of those major roads?
It's tough to say, and I can't speak specifically for ODOT or PBOT, but I can tell you, historically, they suggested that, listen, we don't have this massive fleet of trucks. It's just not an investment that we've made over the years because it just doesn't snow that often in Portland. And when it does, it only lasts for maybe a day, maybe or two. So to invest millions of dollars in this fleet of trucks and plows, to have them sitting in a yard somewhere, just doesn't make sense. Now, again, their primary focus are roads that are used frequently, and most often also emergency routes. That's typically what they've told us over the year.
Yeah, the economic argument comes up a lot during this discussion. One thing that has changed during the discussion over the years has been the use of salt, and I know that they just started using salt a few years ago. Did they use salt in preparation for this storm?
PBOT and ODOT both said yes, they use salt, and as you recall, years ago, this was a huge point of debate. Should they be using salt? There was enough public outcry. They said, okay, finally, we will get salt. They've been storing it and apply it as needed during these storms.
Do they think they're using enough? I know that's kind of a weird question, but are they kind of still assessing if they're using it properly since they're still just beginning to use salt in this area?
Yeah, good question, and I don't know. I mean, from their perspective, I mean, they always continue to try new things and see what works and doesn't work. After the fact, you kind of evaluate. Certainly, this storm was different, though. I mean, the ice and the level of ice that we saw in this storm certainly was unique.
Got it. I could keep talking to you about this. I think a lot of it would turn into kind of some speculation and things of that nature. But I know our viewers have had a lot of questions come in, so maybe we can ask them for a few more. And if you have some time, you can take them to the authorities and the people who are making these decisions, and we'll get some more of the specifics. But for now, thanks for the updates, man. Stay warm out there.
All right, now let's talk about the big story. I know what you're thinking. Snow, ice, power lines, work crews. Weren't we already talking about the big story? Kind of repeat something I said off the top. All of those stories matter. They do, but there are varying degrees. And until we get coronavirus under control, that one's going to kind of stay at the top of the priority pile. Now, the good news is all the people who had vaccine appointments canceled by this weather will get them rescheduled. You probably already have an email in your inbox or spam folder, so make sure to check that now. But there is another group of vulnerable people in the 1A category still now waiting for the vaccine and answers on when they'll even get it. Here's Kristen Severance.
They're supposed to be in the first group.
Gina Roberts runs an adult care home in Tigard. She's responsible for the 5 people who live there and has been trying to get them and her employees vaccinated since December.
But it's mainly their families coming to see them, to give them a hug. I mean, it's been devastating to them.
Residents like 95-year-old Ray with mobility issues. Gina says she can't load him up and drive him to a mass vaccination site. Or 78-year-old Carol on oxygen, who has not held her granddaughter in 6 months.
My daughter comes and talks to me through the door. I'm lonely. I would just like to have more personal contact. That would be important.
There are more than 1,300 adult care homes in Oregon licensed with the state. These are smaller facilities run out of people's homes. They are all in the state's 1A group to be vaccinated first. While the adult care homes are supposed to get the vaccine through a federal program, Less than 200 out of the 1,300 homes have registered so far.
Program to deliver.
Fred Steele, the governor's appointed long-term care ombudsman, said the state did not do a good job communicating with the adult care homes on how to get the vaccine.
So the process or the effort in Oregon, in hindsight, wasn't coordinated and organized enough for them to get registered. So the concern now is ensuring that they are connecting with their local public health at the county level to make sure that they get the vaccines, both for themselves as the provider, any staff they have, and obviously the residents who live there.
But even the places that did register are having problems. Gina signed up and was scheduled to get the vaccine at her facility through CVS on February 10th. She said the pharmacy had sent nearly 10 follow-up emails. Then they canceled, saying, quote, "We cannot service your facility based on not having a common area outside the home or oversight coordinator." Gina said her facility has a common area and she is the coordinator. She has no idea what that means and said CVS stopped responding. She does not know what to tell her residents or their families. She teared up talking to me about it.
I've had people that have passed away in the last few months that didn't get to see their families. It's not right. It's been hard on everyone, I know that, but they're supposed to be in the first group. They're the people that are at the most risk. And I live every day in fear that I'm going to bring it back to them.
Gina sent us a detailed letter really describing her situation. We sent that to the state's long-term care office and also to CVS. We'll keep you posted on if and when vaccines are scheduled at her facility. Is this happening to you? Let us know. Just use the hashtag HeyDan or send us an email at thestory@kgw.com. We will do our very best to get you answers.
Thank you, Kristen. Now, we did hear back from CVS tonight. They told us in part CVS Health is working closely with our partners at the Oregon Health Authority and across the state to ensure all residents and staff of skilled nursing and assisted living facilities receive their COVID-19 vaccinations in a timely fashion. Now, frontline workers are next in line to get the vaccine in Oregon. Now, unfortunately, that's about all the specifics I can give you right now. We don't have a date yet or any real details about how that group might be divided up. We do know in Washington, we know that high-risk grocery store workers are getting the shots there right now. Now, we had a big plan to kind of dive into this topic this evening. We've been running commercials, in fact, to promote it, but we're going to have to put it on ice tonight, if you know what I mean. Our reporters are all covering the weather. Our executive producer has no power or internet. One of our writers got stuck at home with the lights off and a dead car battery. So frankly, we just can't do the story justice tonight. And, one of the pillars of this show is to not waste your time. So if we cover a story, we want to do it thoroughly. And this is a delicate story. I mean, especially considering this news from Kroger, the largest grocery store chain in the U.S. after Walmart. They own QFC and Fred Meyer, and they plan to offer workers $100 in a bonus to get the vaccine. It really is an interesting conversation that headline can start. See, on the one hand, Kroger will help get people vaccinated by offering a bonus. And we've seen the reluctance from people in every category, from nurses to teachers. A lot of people are fearful of the vaccine, and maybe this money will help them with that. On the other hand, Kroger is closing stores in Southern California because they have to pay their workers more, because of a mandate in that area to give the employees there a higher wage. Now, personally, that amount, that $100, it struck a chord with me. It got me to think. People who are afraid to take this vaccine, who worry about long-term side effects, who don't want to be the first in line, it makes them feel like a guinea pig. For Kroger employees, the price to ignore those concerns is $100. I think that says something. I'm not sure exactly what, but Kroger isn't the only one with this idea. Audi offered employees 2 hours of pay per dose. Dollar General offered 4 hours of paid time. It's a complex discussion that we really should have about the vaccine and about who needs it the most and why we should trust it and how we treat the workers who do some of the most essential work in our society. We're going to keep working on this story. We're not quite ready to dive into it tonight, but I have a post on my Facebook page right now. And if you have a question or if there's a point that you think we should include in the coverage, please let me know. Now, Let's take a second and check in with the doses, kind of how the vaccine is doing overall. We can tell you more than 483,000 Oregonians have gotten at least their first dose. Now, a lot of them have gotten their second dose as well, but this number represents the people who have gotten the first one, and that works out to be more than 11% of the state's population. Not bad, with at least one shot, 11.3%. In Washington, more than 807,000 people have gotten at least their first dose, which works out to be 10.7% of the state's population.
CNN had a big exclusive this weekend that actually got entered as evidence in the impeachment trial, though it was the same scoop a small-town newspaper in Longview, Washington, broke weeks ago.
She had this exclusive interview, and I said, boy, that's a familiar story.
And just in case you need many more examples of how well Portland and Snow get along, we've got a little blast from the past in the KGW vault.
Yeah, I think we're getting some bitter reminders of what winter is all about here in the Northwest.
When the story continues.
Welcome back. I was so busy looking through emails, I almost missed the start of this next block of the show here. The director had to say, get back over in front of the camera. So welcome back. Hi. I was just looking through those emails, Facebook comments, things like that. Keep sending them. Give me your thoughts. Let me know what you want to see us cover next or some of the ideas you have of the stuff we've already covered. You can search Dan Haggerty KGW on Facebook or use that hashtag HeyDan on Twitter. For a second, I want to talk about the impeachment trial. I know it's over. President Trump was acquitted. Everyone's moving on. And we will too in just a minute. Because if you were watching it on Saturday morning, you might have heard a familiar name come up.
Last night, Congresswoman Jamie Herrera Butler of Washington State issued a statement confirming that in the middle of the insurrection, when House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy called the president to beg for help, President Trump responded, and I quote, "Well, Kevin, I guess these people are more upset about the election than you are."
So this statement from Southwest Washington's Republican Congresswoman got entered as evidence in the trial by the House managers. And senators also voted to allow witnesses, which could have included Herrera Butler, but neither side actually decided to call anyone, and things got wrapped up pretty quickly. Now, it is worth noting Herrera Butler was one of only 10 House Republicans who voted for President Trump's second impeachment, and she has spoken out recently against some of the more extreme elements in the Republican Party. I talked to her about that earlier this month, and you can watch that full interview right now on the KGW YouTube channel. But let's go back to that statement from her for just a moment that caused some commotion during the trial. She posted it on social media on Friday after CNN reported on the phone call between President Trump and House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy during the insurrection. CNN calling this a, quote, an exclusive story. But it turns out that it wasn't exclusive because the Daily News in Longview had reported it 4 weeks earlier. They published an interview with Herrera Butler on January 17th, where she said McCarthy told her about his phone call with the president, including the part where Trump reportedly told him, well, I guess these people are just more angry about the election and upset than you are. So, looks like this small town newspaper scooped CNN and the rest of us by an entire month. And for that, they really should be the ones getting the credit for it. So I spoke to the editor of the Daily News earlier today about all of this.
So, Barry, was it a surprise? What was your reaction when you saw this story on CNN and they were saying, exclusive, we're breaking this story that you had actually already reported on?
Yeah, I saw the report by Jamie, another Jamie Gango of CNN, and she said she had this exclusive interview, and I said, boy, that's a familiar story. I don't fault any other media for being competitive. They obviously, in their mind, it probably was they were the first people to talk about it nationally. And so they liked the fact that they scooped other networks, et cetera, with this story. My guess is that they probably did some sort of Google search and saw that we'd reported it. We're just a small newspaper in a small city in Southwest Washington. And so when the fact that we reported it a month ago may still, in their mind, may have been a national exclusive. I don't really fault them too much, but I would have appreciated if other media, such as the New York Times, had done some research and mentioned that we'd reported it first. Some other networks did that, and so that's okay. We got the story out first, and I feel good that we did it.
We know the power of national media outlets, some of the most recognizable news names in the entire world. But one thing we like to do on this show, on The Story, is to advocate for smaller
kind of journalistic outlets that can really turn big stories like this one. And I wanted to get your input on the importance of journalism coming from smaller newspapers and smaller websites or TV stations.
Well, that's very important, whether it's Vancouver or Longview or Bellingham or Spokane or whatever. As you know, we have access to folks like our local Congress members because they trust us and they work with us all the time. While they might be responsive to a call from a CNN reporter because they feel pressure, they are more likely to open up and give us more details to journalists who they work with and they trust. And I think that's the key. We already have relationships.
Hey, those national outlets, those are always going to be the big stars, but trust me, it's the local stuff that really gets it done in your community. We always like to highlight local journalism here on this show, so please check out the Daily News' coverage of Herrera Butler on their website, tdn.com. Now, I know I've been talking about the roads a lot and how bad I think they are. I know some of you are sick of hearing me talk about it, and that's fair. But look, this has been a problem for decades. Case in point, this story. We dug out of the snow. I mean, the KGW vault from 1989. We're going to finish the story with this one next. Welcome back. A lot of you have been sharing your memories of big snowstorms that you've lived through here in Portland and the surrounding area. Please keep them coming using the hashtag HeyDan. And here's one you may remember from 1989 that, no surprise, caused a big mess out on the roads. Let's head into the KGW vault and take a look.
So this morning's traffic mess may have just been a dress rehearsal for tomorrow's commute. Kathy Kiyomura is stationed up on Highway 26 tonight, keeping an eye on the traffic for us. Kathy?
Tracy, I think we're getting some bitter reminders of what winter is all about here in the Northwest. Road conditions still a hazardous mixed bag. For example, traffic is moving along very well here on Highway 26 just above the tunnel, but we are getting reports from motorists around the city that, well, their streets are still very icy. Now, statewide, there are no road closures to report to you right now. However, state police remind all of us that if we are hitting the road, to please carry traction devices or traction tires. There was one traffic fatality here in the state. We are sorry to report a Grants Pass man was killed when his car slid off the road in Josephine County. Locally, well, there were scores of fender benders keeping police very busy.
Anybody hurt? Just whiplash. No serious injuries.
The scene on McLaughlin Boulevard would be repeated throughout the metro area during the frigid morning commute. The same accident scenario, different players.
I saw a couple of them that didn't even stop. They spun around, hit a couple cars, got hit themselves, and then left.
Yeah,
so there's at least 3 other cars.
The driver who caused this 5-car pileup took off after skidding and sliding on slick pavement.
Slid across here, and then I started sliding, and I was starting to get it back in control, and then he pulled out, and when he pulled out, I ran into him. And then he took off, because I got rear-ended right after that, so I didn't see where he went.
Great, so the guy who caused this...
nowhere to be found.
On the I-5 ramp just off the Banfield, 4 cars bumped, bashed, and cruised away, leaving 3 crumpled vehicles behind.
Apparently, this one vehicle up here was involved in an accident all by himself, and then the independent news vehicle stopped to help, and she was going by and lost it on the ice.
It's been like this all morning. What looks to be dry pavement is actually ice. Ice didn't keep these folks off of Southwest 185th or from helping each other. Motorists pushed, jumped, and strained just to get vehicles moving down the highway again. Those who made it to work on this morning had time to appreciate this winter phenomenon, changing their morning routine.
Well, I had chains on until I got out to 205, and then I took them off. So it wasn't bad at all. It wasn't. A lot of fun. You guys can stay and play with us.
Yeah, you can. Well, it's certainly not playtime on the road tonight. Police remind all of us to take it slow and easy, be careful, and watch out for that other guy, Tracy.
Kathy, what a mess.
She caught me off guard with that little slide she did on the ice. I was like, whoa! I love looking back. A lot of the style is still the same. You know, it's back to being the same. I love looking into the vault. So I don't want to go into a bunch of comments tonight, but I do want to address something. People, I think, kind of misinterpret how I am criticizing PBOT or ODOT or anything like that. The same thing happened when I criticize the employment department or I talk about the rollout of the vaccine. I'm not talking about specific workers. I'm not talking about the people who are out there putting their safety in danger to help clear the roads or fix down power lines or any of that thing. For those people, I'm extremely grateful. I couldn't be more grateful. I know we all are. Thank you to them and their families who are missing them as they work, 12-hour shifts. I'm just talking about the systems that we have in place that can always be done better. That's all. Trust me. I respect everybody out there risking their neck to help keep our lights on or our roads clear. Thanks for being with us tonight. That is a story. It's Monday. I have a feeling this is going to be a long week, but look, don't take my word for it yet. We'll talk about it tomorrow.